The Indianapolis Colts could be set to replace some key contributors this offseason. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network around. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and I'm joined, as always, by Jake Arthur, the boots on the ground over at Round Table Sports. Today, we're going to be diving into a couple potential departures for the Colts this offseason, 2 notable free agents, and 1 wide receiver who... Look, the contract's got to be touched in some way, so we'll see what could happen. If the Colts move on from these 3 players, though, what are some potential options to replace them, whether it's in-house, whether it's a draft, whether it's free agency? We're going to go through it all today. But, Jake, we're going to kick it off with the veteran wide receiver, Michael Pittman Jr., who is set to make $29 million against the cap this next season. We've talked about this at length already this offseason. He's not going to make that against the cap this next season, whether it's restructure, cut, extension, trade, whatever it's going to be. Pittman is not going to make $29 million against the cap, especially with the pending Alec Pierce free agency coming up and what the Colts are going to pay him. So if they do move on from the veteran wide receiver, Jake, which direction do you think this team could go in terms of replacing that value or just replacing his role in the lineup?
Yeah, I think doing it by committee at receiver can be pretty tough because I think you have to have dudes that can win. And you do have that in this instance where we're projecting Alec Pierce to be re-signed, Tyler Warren. But if you're just simply replacing Pittman in-house with like Ashton Doolin's your only other really outside receiver. Like technically Anthony Gould can do it, but they usually use him at slot during training camp. Same with like Coleman Owen. I'm sorry to break it, but I don't think Coleman Owen is going to be the guy out there replacing Michael Pittman Jr., Eli Pankel, neither for him either. The receiver market, I don't love it. I don't love a lot of free agent positions anyways most years, but this year receiver just really isn't it. There's guys who are going to make even more than Alec Pierce, or I guess just George Pickens. You got some guys who are going to be pretty expensive. Pierce, George Pickens, Juwan Jennings, like there's expensive guys out there. Mike Evans, there's no way they let him leave Tampa, and I'm sure he doesn't want to leave. He's also quite old. I looked at like Romeo Doubs. If you're looking for someone who's going to make like half of what Pittman was worth, around $15 million maybe APY, maybe you could roll with Romeo Doubs because I'm trying to get guys that have some size and playmaking ability to them. Otherwise, if you want to go real cheap and kind of piecemeal it, Jalen Naylor from the Vikings or Jalen Tolbert from the Cowboys, around $4 or $5 million APY. But when I looked at that, I was like, that just all shows me that you have to go through the draft to do that, really. And there were some guys that I thought could fit, in the top 75 or so. Omar Cooper Jr. and Elijah Surratt, the IU tandem, of course, we've talked about them. Malachi Fields from Notre Dame, love him, height, weight, speed, playmaking ability. And you could say the same thing for Chris Brazzell from Tennessee as well. Those are some guys who I thought might fit a little bit to replace Pittman specifically if you're looking for that.
Yeah, and kind of to start off with the internal options, though, I do agree with you that, like, from a one-to-one perspective, like, Ashton Doolin's probably your only guy on the roster, right, now that A.D. Mitchell plays for the Jets. I don't think that Doolin projects super well as like an every down full-time wide receiver all the time. But one other aspect that could lead to replacing some of that value just a little bit is one, the what we're expecting the increase in snaps to be with Alec Pierce in terms of like when we go to 12 personnel, we're going to get Pierce out there as much as possible instead of what Pittman would be in a lot of these situations as well. But also when you go to these 2 wide receiver looks, when you're going into 12 personnel with 2 tight ends and 2 wide receivers, I think you could have Josh Downs out there. It's just, it would work in a different way. You'd want to have him avoiding press coverage as much as possible, having maybe the 2 receivers to one side on more stacked looks to get him away from that press. But I think Downs could use a bigger role. We saw Downs' snaps come down quite a bit this past season because the Colts went to more 12, because they went to more 13 personnel. So we could see, Doolin take it when they're in more 11 personnel. But then you could also see Downs getting an increase in 12 and 13 personnel reps just to get him on the field a little bit more this next season. So I don't think it has to be like a 1-to-1 replacement. I think you could, replace Pittman kind of in the aggregate with Downs and Doolin rather than just, one player doing that. But I do agree with you that you still probably want to add another body because like behind those guys, you don't really have another body. And I'm way out on free agency for it being like, when do we really see free agency being this great avenue for free agent wide receivers? Like it's never really the place to go, especially in this era where so many like draft wide receivers are coming in and being productive in different ways, like early and often. I don't think I would ever like pay an outside free agent to come in here. It's one thing to pay your own guy who knows the system, who what they can bring, but taking that risk on a guy in free agency at a position where the draft is always so full of players that can come in and produce, I just don't think I'd ever really pay an outside free agent unless it's like a top tier guy like a George Pickens, but those guys don't hit the market. Like guys at Alec Pierce's level don't hit the market because Pierce isn't going to hit the market, So yeah, I think in general, I just wouldn't pay. Like, sure, like a Jalen Naylor who's played a little bit could be fine on like a low end deal, but knowing how desperation works in free agency, he could get up to $10 million a year, and it wouldn't shock me. So I think going the draft route to just fill out that wide receiver room makes the most sense.
Yeah, and I think it also gives you security, number one, to have a capable player step up in case of injury, which we know always happens, but to also have like a future plan in place. Like the AD Mitchell thing, it really was working actually in the Colts' favor, just to at least like have that option. It just specifically him, he found his way in the doghouse with the gaffes in the Rams game, but having that like young developmental guy who was like a top 75 pick and like is a legit prospect, not just a Mike Strawn type guy that you picked late who may one day become something. But like AD Mitchell already was something, So I think you get somebody like that. Unfortunately, early-ish in the draft, probably like second or third round, as much as I just want to dump the draft on defense, basically. But yeah, you probably need to get someone relatively early in the draft, by round 4 at the latest, I would say. But by doing that, because I'm cool with having Ashton Doolin with an increased role and Josh Downs as well. I think they're good players in specific roles. So you allow them to do that. You get, Tyler Warren out there more often. Maybe that opens something for Will Mallory. But you also have this guy who can play 5 snaps a game, which it doesn't seem sexy very much, obviously, but they're developing behind the scenes and they can move into a greater role beyond this year into the next one. And shoot, maybe if they're surprisingly productive or like surprisingly good, I'm not saying Puka Nacua because it's annoying to be looking for the next Puka Nacua every year, but like someone who is surprisingly productive, more than, you draft them in the 3rd round and they go out there and catch 30 to 40 balls or something. You know what I mean? Like a little more productive than you would initially anticipate, or their playing time you had initially allotted for them. I just think it's good to have that option kind of waiting in the wings behind everybody else.
I like you trying to get more Will Mallory mentions on this show. I think we have to lead the NFL in Will Mallory mentions per episode.
We need to know what a Will Mallory opportunity looks like before the experiment ends. You know what I mean? We have to know first.
Look, Jake, he's a 6th rounder who's been on the roster for 3 years. That's as big an opportunity as you're going to get in as being a 6th round pick or 5th round pick, I think is what he was.
Is the guy can get separation and make tough catches. I just want to see
in practice.
No, in games. I want to know what it looks like.
Yeah, but I don't even disagree with you here. I'm just making fun of you here. But like, yeah, I think I think a lot of this could work. I will also say I think the best case scenario here, if there's any avenue for it, is just getting some kind of pay cut or restructure on that contract. Because like if you can get Pittman down to like $15 to $16 million per year, that'd be awesome. but it's hard to convince a guy to take less money, to play for you. So if that's on the table, 100% take it. But I agree with you. I just think the best case scenario for this is just replace him kind of in the aggregate, duel in a little bit more snaps, downs more snaps, and then a drafted rookie anywhere. It could be as high as a second round pick. It could be as low as a fourth or fifth round pick, preferably maybe a little bit higher than that. But I think you can replace him in the aggregate more than you could Alec Pierce, at least in this offense. But coming up, we're going to talk about another potential replacement needed, and that is at safety. With Nick Cross hitting the market, there have been conflicting reports on how much he could make this offseason, but if the Colts lose him, what could they do at that safety position?
If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper, but they just weren't the right fit, then you know how important it is to actually get that hire right. And when you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed sponsored jobs. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. Instead of struggling to get that job post seen, Indeed sponsored jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored jobs boost your post to the people who were the best match for your role, and that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than a non-sponsored job. So spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job meet the premium placement that it deserves at Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL. Just go to Indeed.com/LockedOnNFL right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. All right, everybody. Thank you for making Locked On Colts your first listen of this special Saturday edition. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Remember, if you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer clubs. You can catch our audio ad-free, and you can get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for the listeners of our show. Go to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join or even gift a subscription today. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are kind of putting a few Colts prominent players under this spotlight here, guys who it makes a lot of sense that they're not going to be back for one reason or another in 2026. We start out with Michael Pittman Jr., although the Colts could look to rework that deal. $29 million in 2026 is just unrealistic for a player that's not giving you $29 million per year worth of productivity. And we're going to move on now to safety Nick Cross. So far, Zach, Cross has been kind of a true draft and develop success story for the Colts and Chris Ballard. They drafted him at 20 years old out of Maryland. He was super raw. Didn't have a lot of experience there in Maryland yet. Super athletic guy who was just kind of learning to become a sum of his parts. You know what I mean? Took him a couple years in Indy to catch on. They didn't really have great answers at safety, but he could not step forward and really grasp that spot in Gus Bradley's defense, at least. But now for a couple years, he's been a starter, has had well over 100 tackles, been very productive both times, had like 3 or 4 picks 2 years ago. So he could do a bit out there. Now we're at the point where he's still very young and has been very productive. But we have seen the safety market like last year, for example. We use Trevon Moore as a good example, where if you're getting to be like $15 million per year, Nick Cross, I'm not saying he wouldn't be worth that to someone, but like for the Colts, that's a hard pill to swallow because you're already paying Mooney Ward $20 million a year. Sauce Gardner has a huge contract. You just signed Cam Bynum, a fellow safety last year, to a big deal. So it's really hard to justify putting another big contract in that starting secondary. And if you're looking to justify it with just play, like he's great against the run and he's great at defending what's in front of him for the most part. But there are some lapses in coverage, especially like when you get closer to the red zone. When it looks like there's a blown coverage, he seems to kind of be tied to it. And a lot of times it results in a touchdown. So there's plenty of reasons to bring Nick Cross back, but you could talk yourself out of it mostly based on price.
Yeah, they're gonna be allocating so much cap already to the secondary, and if you want to make this defense better, you have to reallocate some of it to the defensive line. So they need to make that kind of adjustment there. And unfortunately, I think Nick Cross will become a casualty of that, unless again Spotrac has him projected to make, or Spotrac or ESPN or whatever it was has him projected to make like $6 million per year. If it's
Which
that,
would be
sure.
great. Yeah.
But if I think it's going to be more than that. I think it'll get over like 10, and then I think it's a little too much for the Colts. So yeah, I think that they not only need the one safety to kind of replace him in the starting lineup, but I think they could also use a second safety as well. I mean, as of right now, you have the listed guys on here: Hunter Wohler, Daniel Scott, Ruben Lowry, and Trey Washington. Wohler and Scott have been injured more than they've been healthy in their times in the NFL at this point. Lowry has been inactive more than he's been active in his time in the NFL at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And Trey Washington has spent more time on the practice squad than on the regular roster in the NFL. So I think that it leaves a lot to be desired, the rest of that safety room. I think ideally I would like to have, like, even in the most optimistic worldview where we're putting Hunter Wohler as like this box safety, third down, like third safety type guy who can play in the middle and be like a sub linebacker type player. You still need an over the top safety to replace Rodney Thomas and Nick Cross in that role. But ideally, I think I'd want to grab like two guys for that, like whether one is like a low end free agent and the other one is a draft player. I think they need multiple safeties to this room because honestly, outside of Bynum, I don't think any of these guys are a given. I want Wohler to be good, but coming off of a pretty brutal injury that ended his first year, and he was a 7th-round pick for a reason, I'm not going to have my hopes super high for him, but I think Bynum's really the only guy you can count on in that safety room right now.
Yeah, even if they bring Cross back, it's still a little bit of a need because, again, 3 safeties play a lot in the system. Rodney Thomas was a guy that got plenty of run, and he could certainly be upgraded over. And then we mentioned Hunter Wohler. Like, if he plays a bit this year, great, but he didn't even make it into his rookie year last year because of the Liz Frank issue. So you need more. The free agent market is a little more forgiving and a little more appealing than the receiver one was, for sure. A lot of safeties, a lot of startable safeties are not very expensive at all. And I don't think you need a star. You just need someone who's not necessarily a liability, and they could take advantage of opportunities when they're given. Like, the ball comes to you, intercept it. Can you make a tackle in the open field? Like, my standards for the strong safety are not that high. So you look at some guys out here, Reed Blankenship from the Eagles. Now this is the APYs I'm collecting is a bit of a blend of like Spotrac, ESPN, PFF, just to kind of come up with what might be the most realistic. It looks like about $7 million per year for Blankenship. Your boy Dane Belton, Zach, about $6 million. And then a few other guys we've mentioned on the show before, anywhere from $4 to $6-ish million here. Alohi Gilman, Andre Sisco, and Andrew Wingard from the Jaguars. Those are some guys that you could start them. They won't make a big dent really at all in your salary cap. And you don't really have to worry about what's going on back there next to Cam Bynum.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think a guy like Gilman or Cisco make a lot of sense, and then you pair that with a draft pick, and it doesn't even have to be one of the high-end draft picks. Like, you have the Toledo safety on here, Emmanuel McNeil Warren. He might go in round 1 though. Like, his stock is crazy high at this
Tianeman
point.
too.
Yeah, Tianeman as well. Like, he might go round 1 or like early round 2. So those are very good players. It doesn't have to be someone at that degree, but a Genesis Smith or a Bud Clark or VJ Payne you have on here. There's another safety over at Penn State that I don't even dare try his name right now without learning it.
Zaki Wheatley.
Is that what it is? Okay, Zaki Wheatley. I was like, I don't know if there's a different way to pronounce it and mess it up, but like any of those type of guys in like the round 4-ish range paired with like a buy low free agent like Gilman or Wingard or something. I think that's the route I would take. I do like Belton as well, but I think around 6 is a bit much for me. But you know, if he were in that same tier with like a Gilman, I think I would go that route. Plus, like a round 4 safety, I think makes a ton of sense for this team.
Yeah, so AJ Halsey is another one from LSU. Big dude, you could put him in the box there. I believe he's like 6'1", 220-ish or something, like big guy. I think a lot of people like him. Wouldn't be shocked if he winds up going top 50-ish or so. So that's probably a guy that Colts might have to pull the trigger on with their first or their second round pick. But this, I don't dislike this safety group by any means this year in the draft. Like a lot of years, I get kind of icked about it, but this is a really good year for safeties, and especially if you need two of them. We've seen the Colts double and triple dip on positions before, whether it's O-line, corner, which they keep striking out when they draft a million corners, it seems. But if they grabbed a couple safeties out of here, I would not hate that. Would be very cheap. Even if it is one of the bigger guys that you have to take in round 2, like McNeil Warner, Tianeman, or even Halsey, you get that guy, and then you get like a VJ Payne later on, like round 4 or so. Like you've got a good safety position group, and it's cheap. And then that doesn't even include what a guy like Wooler might be able to offer you. Or there's got to be a reason they picked up
Ruben Lowry
off waivers and then never did anything with him. You know what I mean? They never waived him again and put him back out there to try and get him on the practice squad. So we never saw him, but there must be something redeeming about him.
That's the kindest scouting report I've ever heard.
I can't tell you anything about him because I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he's just a great guy to have in the locker room. But coming up, guys, we have another potential position to replace, and that is former first-round pick Kwity Paye hitting the open market. We don't expect the Colts to bring him back. So how do the Colts replace this need at edge rusher that's not only really filling the void that Kwity Paye leaves behind, but also every other edge rusher in this in this room potentially leaving in free agency?
The winter games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you are locking in for the events that you only get to see on the biggest world stage every 4 years. And that's why following the winter games on FanDuel just makes sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports that you care about the most, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. Just think of the drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get super intense really fast. Speed skating races decided by inches. There was a figure skating upset that blew everyone's minds recently. Hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off. FanDuel keeps the entire Olympic experience engaging from start to finish. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, welcome back, everydayers. We are bidding adieu to some Colts stars here, some long-established players where it seems more likely than not that they might be walking, whether it's in free agency or their contract situation just isn't realistic. So we've talked about Michael Pittman Jr. We've talked about Nick Cross. Now let's talk about Kwity Paye. This is one I feel bad hammering this one, Zach, because Paye is a great guy, but like, you look at the numbers this year. It's the most games he's played. It's the most snaps he's played. It's his worst numbers pretty much across the board, though, since his rookie year. Some of them even worse. You look at his Pro Football Focus grade. It is his worst of his whole career, 59. The Colts had picked up his fifth-year option, too. So this was his last opportunity, and it just like probably the least productive season you can imagine, in that you get one more shot at it for us to lock you into a multi-year deal opportunity. But like you mentioned, it's not just him. Even if they were bringing him back, they still would need edge rush help. So no Kwity Paye in this scenario. You say bye to Tyquan Lewis and Samson Ebicom, and then suddenly you're just looking at Laiatu Latu, JT Tuimoloau, and because it's us, Darrell and Chami.
Because it's you. Stop lumping me in with all of your stuff.
You love Darrell and Chami. Face the facts. But no, I mean, realistically, it's Latu and Tuimoloau. I don't think Chami really factors in, although he did get a few call-ups this year because they absolutely needed warm bodies. But yeah, even if you were bringing Paye back, you would need like 3 more dudes to bring into this room. And this is one where we are not going to be subtle about the price. If you want to spend big as a group on edge help on one guy and then some cheaper guys, sure, but like you need to throw dollars at the edge room. So obviously Trey Hendrickson is a guy we've talked a bit about. For us, we're cool with it for the right price. He's not the young and fast option they've been talking about. but try and tell me that Trey Hendrickson doesn't improve the room significantly. He does. You're looking at, I don't know, but between the numbers I've seen, 21 to 25 million per year. He signed the 1-year rework deal for 29 million Cincinnati to play this year for like half the year because he wound up having core muscle surgery, I think, that ended his season. He lasted until like late October, I think, 7 games, I believe. But, as long as he's healthy, the Colts the Colts have his defensive coordinator from Cincinnati. They have his D-line coach from Cincinnati. It makes sense if the Colts want to pull that trigger.
It does make sense. My only fear is I now, because of the Mooney Ward situation, I'm terrified to think of just like, oh, he wasn't healthy this past season, but don't worry, coming to Indianapolis, he'll be healthy now. And then spending all that money on him. But yeah, as a player, a very good football player, obviously one of the most productive and efficient sack producers of the last 4 to 5 years in the NFL since he got to Cincinnati under Lou Anarumo. He's been a consistent force. So he's a very good player. He's going to have a lot of suitors, and ultimately to pick the Colts, I think it would come down to taking a smaller term deal, like 1 to 2 years with the Colts, over probably getting 3 to 4 years with a very desperate like Raiders team or something like that has $1 billion to offer, and he values playing under Lou again rather than going to Vegas and partying it up with his $400 billion that they could offer him. But I think it could happen for sure. There's obviously that connection, and that does play a part when it comes to free agency. I'm more so looking at, like, again, I know we've said this for a lot of the segments, but I guess more so with edge because you need more bodies here. But just looking at adding many capable guys rather than just one. Like I like Trey Hendrickson, but Arnold Ebiketie, Malcolm Kuntz, Joseph Osai, like if you can just add multiple players that I think that can give you a waves of pass rush, or at least something different in waves as a pass rush, I think that could be more beneficial for a Colts team that wants to be aggressive. They want to blitz. They want to play man coverage. I think just having a waves of pass rushers that you can keep fresh makes a lot of sense for this Colts team. So we've said it a lot recently. I'm a big fan of going out and getting an Ebiketie or Kuntz, like those more athletic speed rushers for around, $7, $8, $9, $10 million per year contract. I think 1 or 2 of those guys would make a lot of sense for the Colts.
Yeah. You have to, every avenue you have, other than you probably don't need to trade for anyone, but obviously free agency and the draft, go ahead and do it. We just talked about double dipping at position groups in the draft. Please do it at edge. Looking at some guys who might be available to them at 47, if that's where they wind up picking in the second round. Akeem Mesidor from Miami, the other Miami pass rusher, he may not still be available there, but the age and not having like elite measurables could make him available. So Akeem Mesidor, R. Mason Thomas from Oklahoma, who reminds a lot of people about another former Oklahoma edge defender, Nick Bonito, who turned out pretty okay for the Broncos. Zion Young from Missouri, we've talked about. Gabe Akis from Illinois had a good week down in the Senior Bowl. And then Derek Moore from Michigan. Those are guys you could see pop up as options for the Colts in round 2, round 3. The Colts could draft them, and I wouldn't feel like they would necessarily have the Chris Ballard kiss of death as being Chris Ballard edge rush draft picks, because I feel confident saying those guys have good prospects in the NFL.
I have to say this every time Akeem Mesidor is talked about, though, but he is older than than another player that we've talked about on this episode. He's older than Nick Cross. That is crazy to me. 25-year-old draft prospect, Nick Cross, 24 years old, hitting free agency. But Akeem Mesidor, very, very great player on film. I just get so scared with older players like that. Like, how good were they in college because they were 25 playing against 19-year-olds? Or because they're actually good players, like it's the same thing with like Romello Height with Texas Tech as well. I think he's 25 as well. So that's another edge rusher in this class who it's a good player, could fit the Colts. Older than Nick Cross though. It's just insane how young Nick Cross was coming out of college and how old some of these edge rushers are. But good news. It does look like this is a pretty like deep edge class in terms of just a lot of productive type of players. And while it would be awesome to find the next Myles Garrett somehow in round 3 or 4, right? I think you can find like quality players that can work in a rotation. So if you go get a Hendrickson or you even aim lower and get an Ebiketie or a Boy Mafe, right? And get that like true starter alongside Leatu Latu. And then you get guys who can just be athletic energizer bunnies off the bench. I think that can work just as well too. So yeah, like I like that guys like Derek Moore, Zion Young as potential like athletic rushers to come off behind these free agent additions, but it needs to be multiple steps with edge because they just have nobody in the room right now. Like we mentioned, it's Leatu Latu, JT Tuimoloau, Darrell and Chami, and then me and Jake, I think, are next up after that. So we're going to
some
need.
Ben.
Yeah, I don't know if we got the Ben.
Did have the Ben.
But yeah, they're going to need some help for sure at edge rusher this offseason.
Yeah, without question. So there are obviously other guys we have mentioned that there's plenty of reason they might be parted with from the Colts, but these were three that we felt were probably the most glaring when you look at contract situation and free agency. So actually, this is a good opportunity for us to let you guys know, obviously it's the offseason, draft season, and free agency. Starting Monday, we're going to have a lot more content coming out to you. We're going to be adding in some shorter episodes. So you'll probably notice if you're in audio, you'll be noticing your feeds beefing up with Locked On Colts content even more. We're going to make it specific stuff, though. So it's not just random coming at you. Zach and I, as two guys who love the NFL draft, obviously that's kind of how we fell in love with the NFL in general, was through the draft. We're going to be spotlighting a lot of the draft prospects that we really, really like into these shorter kind of bite-sized episodes. So you'll see regular episodes coming out normally as we do, and then shoot the squad show as well. And then as well as these little draft ones, we'll fill some in with free agent prospects as well, just to kind of keep it fresh and keep new stuff coming. So if you notice a lot more coming through your feeds, that is intentional, and we hope you like it.
Yeah, and thank you guys, as always, for tuning in to Locked On Colts. We'll be back again next week, so make sure to subscribe to our show to get all the latest episodes. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. And if you never miss an episode, then remember the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Colts audio ad-free, plus members-only Discord access, and much more. Head to lockedoncolts.supercast.com to join the club or follow the link to our show notes right now. Thank you all, and we'll be back here again early next week.